Welcome back to the McCann Dogs podcast. It's episode 37, and if you are new to the podcast, we publish new podcast episodes every week to help you understand how dogs think and learn and help explain the why behind dog training. And if you are a regular listener to our podcast, you will recognize my co-host, instructor Shannon Viljasso, the Director of Online Training for the My Dog Can program. Hi there, Shannon.
Hello, Ken. Hi, everybody.
Now, today we are going to talk about something that is, maybe the greatest fear of any dog owner. And we're going to talk to you about creating an emergency plan in the event that your dog is lost. And, this can happen to anyone. We've heard all sorts of stories from people, friends, dog owners from all over the world of really scary scenarios where their dog was lost. So Instructor Shannon has created a blog post on our YouTube or on our website on mccandogs.com. That can help you prepare for that. And we're going to talk about that blog post today. So this is your emergency plan in the event of a lost dog. I'm Ken Steep, and welcome back to McCann Dogs. So Shannon, what prompted you to write this article? I know it was well received when you published it on the website, but what was sort of the motivation behind writing this?
So I feel like this is one of those things that we think will never, ever, ever happen to us. We will always have the ability to control. This is one of those things that happens to other people only. And a couple of years ago, one of our instructor's dogs was staying with a friend of his while he was on vacation. And the dog was a fearful dog, and it slipped underneath a really small space in the fence, and he was just gone. And that really made me think that this absolutely can happen to everyone and anyone. This was a well-trained dog. This dog was in the care of somebody who would have been taking the utmost care and concern for him and for his well-being. It was a fenced, supposedly secured yard, but the dog just found a spot. And dogs will have fearful moments where they might slip a leash, or somebody might accidentally leave a gate open, or the front door might come open for some reason. There's so many reasons that a dog could get lost, not the least of which includes getting into a car accident. And if the dog is not strapped in, they will often be fearful and they'll panic and they'll run, especially when first responders are there and the noise and the lights and the whole situation is scary. So, through no fault of your own whatsoever, you could find yourself in a situation where you're suddenly missing your dog. And I thought, I needed to formulate a plan for myself in the event that something awful like this happened to me. And I thought, I would love to share it with as many people as possible. So I put together a package, a lost dog emergency kit, and wrote this blog post. And I feel so much better now about the prospect of something awful happening with one of my dogs one day, and me being prepared and having everything I need in place to start a search as quickly as I possibly can.
Yeah, I know that's one of the issues or the elements that you talk about at the beginning of the article is tracking devices. Now, I know there's a whole host of tracking devices that are available. I actually reached out to a company not that long ago about a tracking device to test it out and see, what sort of value it might provide to us. But talk a little bit about the tracking devices that you may be able to use if your dog does go missing.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different products on the market, and they range from products that will transmit to a handheld receiver if you've got dogs out in the field. And they've made those for a long time for hunting dogs. So it's basically a tracking device so you can see where those dogs have gone. But now the market has started to expand towards more pet people application and family pets. So you can get attachments that'll go to your dog's collar that will communicate with the GPS system. A lot of those systems you have to pay a fee to access every month, but depending on your situation, that might be a very, very small price to pay for the peace of mind that comes along with knowing where your dog is all the time. There's a lot of variety in them. I definitely recommend you do your homework. Make sure you're getting the right one that applies to you. Again, some of them have a short range, some of them are GPS trackers. There's a real variety in them and a real variety in the cost of them as well. So do your research, but know that there are things out there that if, for example, that awful thing happens one day, you will be able to identify where your dog is.
Yeah. And again, as Shannon mentioned, one of the issues that I found when I reached out to this company about their pet tracking device was the technology wasn't available in Canada, and our training service is based in Canada. It would work as GPS based. However, it would work on a subscription in Europe, but what wouldn't work here. So make sure you do really thoroughly investigate the piece of equipment that you're looking into, and see if it would work for your area before committing to something. Now, one of the most important things that you talk about, I think, in this article is the preparation to help you track your dog should they become lost. And talk to our listeners a little bit about some of the things that you need to prepare or have ready in the event of a lost dog.
Absolutely. So the preparedness really is key, because when something happens, you want to be able to spring into action as quickly as possible. The more seconds you waste, the more lost the dog potentially gets. And the problem with time is that dogs, when they're lost, they will go feral so quickly. So you go from a situation where, your pet dog who loves you and watches you and recognizes you and knows who you are, within a day or two could become very fearful of you and not be willing to come to you out there in the field. So important that you can spring into action as quickly as possible. I would say the most important thing to have on hand is an up-to-date picture. So if you've got a puppy, for example, I would take a new picture every month, because they are changing so rapidly over that period of time. And make sure that your pictures are good and clear. I would take a clear shot from the front and, full body shots, not just the head. And I would also take a clear shot from the side. Now, if you happen to have a dog that has some very unique markings, for example, if they've got some sort of a lightning bolt in their fur on their back, or a heart marking on their back or something, take a close-up picture of that, because that'll really help identify the dog as well. And once your dog turns about a year or two, I would recommend taking a new picture every birthday. And that just gives you sort of a date to aim for, to make sure you don't forget. You don't want to realize when you need the picture of your dog, you don't want to realize that the picture is 3 years old and your dog has changed. Their face is much grayer now. There could be changes to their coat if they've been neutered since the picture's been taken, that sort of thing. So make sure you keep up-to-date pictures. Have information at the ready. So places that you might call if your dog is lost, and that would be the local humane societies, veterinary clinics in the area. A lot of times people will find a dog on the street and take it to the closest vet clinic and leave it there. They'll be looking for information and identity on the dog. So if they already know that you've called and you're missing your dog and here comes this dog, that could be a very quick way of getting your dog back. So have those phone numbers at the ready. Don't wait until the last minute, or don't wait until something awful happens and then you're scrambling to find this information. Have a little logbook, download the Lost Dog Emergency Plan that we've got, and we'll put the link to that available for you guys so you can do that. Have those phone numbers there and ready so that you can very quickly get the word out that you're missing your dog and you are looking for them.
Yeah, and I'll definitely include a link to that Lost Dog Guide in the show notes below. And if you're watching this on our YouTube podcast channel, I'll include it in the description below. Now, we all have a million pictures of our dogs, but when Instructor Shannon talked about pictures, make sure that's not just those adorable pictures of you hugging them or those straight on shots. As Shannon mentioned, you want those profile shots, the shots that are can really differentiate your dog from another black dog, or from another Westie, or from another whatever. It's really helpful in the event that your dog is lost, that you can those defining features, and that you can clearly identify your dog from someone else's. Now, those pictures are especially helpful when you're creating that poster. Now, I'm sure we've all seen posters for a lost dog. Some of them have lots of information. Some of them have very little. But Shannon, what do you think are the most important pieces of information to have on that lost dog poster?
Yeah, definitely. So absolutely the pictures, and as many good quality pictures as you can include that you need to. You don't want to create a collage for everybody to have to sift through, but you do want to make sure that there's enough good information and good identifying features in those pictures that are included on the poster. Make sure that you've got a nice big caption that says lost so that it catches people's attention. What I've been noticing a lot lately around here with the lost dogs, unfortunately, there's often lost dog posters in our area, is that people are using fluorescent background behind the poster to attract attention. So I will very quickly see as I'm driving if there's a new poster on a telephone pole, I will make note of that. So a nice clear title, lost. Please put somewhere on the photo or on the poster, do not chase. This is very important because, as I said, dogs go feral so quickly. They will very, very, very swiftly decide that everything is frightening because they're in survival mode. So you don't want well-meaning people jumping out of their cars and running after your dog in the field because that's just going to drive them out of that area. What you want is for people to call you and let you know, I've just spotted a dog that matches the description on your poster. It was at such and such a location. And then what that person can do, especially if it's been a few days or a couple of weeks or something of that nature, is they can utilize a live trap system and try to catch the dog rather than going and having a whole bunch of people chase it and again pushing it out of the area. So please make sure you put those instructions on the poster. Very clearly identify your phone number and the phone number that you are going to have on you. Don't leave your home phone number. If you still have a home phone, make sure it's your cell number because likely you're not going to be sitting at home and you might miss calls and information. So make sure your cell phone number is on there, some information about the dog. If there's a reward that you're offering, make sure those details are on the poster, and just make sure that you put it in many different spots as possible for as many people to see.
And when you mentioned the making sure that you put your cell phone number on the poster, it reminded me of something that I read in that article, which was a phone tree. And I thought this was a really great idea to have a phone tree established for people to call. So talk to us a little bit about how that phone tree might work.
Yeah, definitely. So, in the event that your dog gets lost, it's in a perfect world, you only have to make that one phone call. So, if my phone tree, for example, I right away would call my sister, and then my sister has instructions on the people that she is to call, and those people have instructions on who they're to call. So, for example, if I call my sister and she calls 7 people, and those 7 people call 7 people, within a few minutes, I've mobilized potentially 49 people to get out there and help me search for my dog. And I haven't had to waste the time picking up the phone individually for all of that. You can have things ready to post online right away as well. For example, you could have a shell of a website with all this information ready and not necessarily online. There's so many free website services now that you can build a website quite easily. And that way, if you lose your dog, you can very quickly put that information online. Go to the Facebook groups. There's always lost dog Facebook groups these days in most areas. So you can go to that Facebook group, again, have that information on hand so that right away you can get those details up on Facebook, and you can help to mobilize your social media network as well. And the information and the word gets spread so quickly these days that you really do want to get it somewhere on Facebook so that people can run with it and lots of people will know.
Yeah, I think social media has become a great place to share the information and spread the word really, really quickly. You talk in the article a little bit about a checklist to facilitate the search, and the elements of that checklist are going to speed up the process of you springing into action, which is essentially what needs to happen. I mean, the dogs can cover a lot of ground in a short period of time, so you need to be ready for when something like this happens. So what elements do you think that a good checklist might have?
So things like the vet's phone numbers that you've called, any humane societies in the area that you've called, starting your phone tree, getting your posters up. The thing is, when we're in a situation where we're upset and we're panicked, we are much more likely to forget something. So what we want to do is we want to have everything mapped out ahead of time when we're in a calm state of mind, and we can easily say, okay, this would be helpful if I was missing my dog, this, and this. And that way, if something happens, you can just run through that that checklist and very quickly make sure that you cover all of the main elements in it.
Yeah, and you also mentioned some reference material, and that's, I don't immediately think of things that I might need to reference if my dog is lost, but in that you talk about things like a trap availability, like doing a grid search. I think those are really handy things to have. Knowing, I mean, I've worked in emergency services for some time, and I know that with all of the training and stuff that we do, sometimes it's nice to have some reference material to just quickly remind you how to accomplish some of these tasks. So talk about what elements of reference material you might need.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, having that those details about where you can get live traps very quickly is going to be a great thing. That really is one of the best ways to catch a dog that is running and scared. So the ideal situation is that somebody says it's been spotted in that area, it's been hanging out there for a day, maybe it's found a food or a water source, so they're staying in that area. And what you can do is get those live traps in place quickly and try to bring the dog back home. A grid search, having that phone tree there, all of those things that are going to very quickly mobilize your network are going to be the best things to have on hand. So if there's anybody in the area that that does lost dog search and rescue work, that would be a great person's number and name to have on hand. If you can get somebody who's got a really good tracking dog to help you search for your dog, that is going to be probably one of your best tools, is another dog's nose to find your dog. So things like that, being in place, being ready, and just having to make a phone call or two are really going to save a lot of time.
I know one of our instructors has been called on more than one occasion to bring her dogs out to do some search work when a dog has been lost. So I love that idea. I love the idea of preparation. We never think anything like this would ever happen to us, but it sure is nice to be ready in case it does. It's just a little reassurance. Now, I know that a lot of people might say, well, I've got my tags on my dog, or my dog has a chip, so if they're lost, it shouldn't take long to find them once someone discovers them and takes them to a vet. But sometimes those chips don't work. Sometimes those chips don't work like they're supposed to. Tell us a little bit about the idea about identifying your dog, and whether tags may be better than a chip, or a tattoo may be better than tags, etc.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's flaws in every single way of identifying your dog. There's no one perfect way. Tattoos fade out over time. My Rottweiler Quincy had a tattoo on her inner thigh, and by the time she was 9 months old, you could barely see any of that. So tattoos aren't really the most efficient thing. With tags on collars, especially with a dog running through the woods potentially, or running through bush, those tags can get caught and pull off very, very easily. So you might be better off with an embroidered phone number on the actual collar itself, but again, not fail safe. It can get caught on something and pull off. And microchips, as great as they are, there are some problems with them. One of them is that there are several different types of microchips, and not every reader will read every microchip. So your dog may have a microchip that is exactly where it needs to be in between their shoulder blades, and your vet may still scan for a microchip and not be able to find it, or the Humane Society may scan for it and not be able to find it. So that may be a problem in and of itself. The other problem with microchips is they tend to migrate around in the body. My first toller, Jaden, it was in his shoulder blades when he was a puppy, and then later on in life, I could actually feel it in the front of his chest. And I remember feeling it the first time, thinking, what in the world is that? And then figured out that it was the microchip that had gone from his shoulder blades to his chest. So that can be a problem as well. The other problem with microchips is that people forget about them. So for example, if I have a microchip in my dog and I get a new cell phone and a new phone number, I need to make sure that it's in my head to call that microchip company, because there's not the information on the microchip. It is transmitted through the provider of those microchips, and they store the host information. So when that's scanned, you get a number, and then you contact and you get details from the microchip company. So you do need to make sure that you're very cognizant. If your information changes, your address, your phone number, any of that, you need to contact the microchip company and make sure that your information is up to date. I mean, how horrible would that be if they scanned for a microchip and called and got a number that wasn't in service or a number that belonged to somebody else and they had no idea what you were talking about? So make sure if you do rely on the microchip that you've got your information up to date with the company. Try multiple forms of identification as much as possible. So I would, in a perfect world, have the phone number very clearly marked on the collar itself, not just on a tag. I would have a microchip as well. You know, tattoos, they're usually done when puppies are absolute babies. So you might not have a choice in that one. But if there is a tattoo, make sure that it is still clear and legible if you are using that as your sole means of identifying the dog. So really your best bet is to cover as many bases as possible. Don't rely on just one thing, and fingers crossed with a little bit of luck that something helps bring your dog home there.
Yeah, those redundancies can be really helpful. You know, we can't rely on one of those means of identifying the dog. I think that is really important. And we do the same with all of our dogs, the tags and the on their collars, et cetera, as well with their microchips, just because you don't know what sort of situation you might get into. And something really interesting that I did learn from your article was that some of the microchips are brand specific or technology specific. So not all readers will read all microchips. So you know, your dog may be found and taken to a vet whose chip reader doesn't read that style of chip. I thought that was really interesting, and I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Now, another really great way to avoid any of these scenarios is to have have a dog who listens, who comes when called, who wants to pay attention to you when you're out and they're in an off-leash situation. And a great way to get there with your dog is the My Dog Can program. And Instructor Shannon is the director of the My Dog Can program. And Shannon, can you just, in a few words, let us know what the My Dog Can program is all about?
Just a few. So My Dog Can is our grade 1 program. It is all of the skills that you need to have a well-behaved family pet. We're going to teach the dogs to come when they're called, regardless of what distractions are out there, walk nicely with you on a nice loose lead so you can enjoy your walks again. And we also work on sit and down stays. That's going to help build some stationary work. It's going to help with emotional control with the dog. It's a very important skill to teach. It's often overlooked, but we'll talk a lot about why it's so important and why we do it. My Dog Ken is different because we will support you. Absolutely 100%. Even though you're not physically coming to us, we are able to support you through email. We're able to support you over the phone. Everybody that answers our phone in the office here is a professional dog trainer. We've got a great Facebook group where we can support you through the Facebook group. You can send videos. You know, there's all sorts of options for support. And the really nice thing about the program, I know you said a few words and I'm going more than a few words, but the really
That's
nice
okay.
thing about the program is that we're teaching people about the why. We're teaching people how dogs think, why they do certain things. And that is going to teach you how to be a dog trainer, which is really, really nice. We have so much time with our online clients because of the different support systems we have in place that we really get to delve so much deeper than just teaching the dog skills. We get to really work with and help you understand how to understand your dog.
And I think a thing that a lot of our current My Dog Can students really like is that at any point they can reach out to a professional dog trainer, whether they're calling our office that is staffed by professional dog trainers 6 days a week, or they're reaching out to us in the Facebook group or reaching out to us by email. There's support available. And that's one of the things I think that people worry about when they're deciding whether they can choose an online program. They feel like they might need more support. And the My Dog Can program is exactly where they can get that additional support, that real live dog trainer essentially that's hanging out with you at home as you're training your dog and can help you overcome any obstacles that may be in your way.
Absolutely. Get started for free. You can try the first lesson for free and start training your dog right away. There's enough great information in that first lesson that you can start the bones of teaching your dog to come when called, walk with you, and sit and down stay.
Yeah, very cool. And I'll include a link to the My Dog Can program in the show notes below. And on that note, I want to thank you guys for watching. If this is your first time on the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Every single week we publish new episodes to help you understand the why behind how dogs think and learn. And on that note, I'm Ken. Happy training. Bye for now.
Bye, everybody.